Thank you. Welcome back. Thank you for staying tuned. As we said, going into the break, last segment, we are joined by the Minister of Tourism, Minister Anthony Mahler. Minister, thank you for joining us this morning.
Good morning, everybody. Morning, Belize.
We have a lot to talk about, right? We have tourism to discuss, youth, sports, and diaspora relations. And we want to start with a conversation on tourism. What's your assessment of the performance of the tourism industry currently?
Currently means this month.
Let's talk a bit about year to date. The start of the year to today compared to year to date last year.
We're on par. Actually, we're up by just a few hundred visitors, and actually the year started very strong, and then I believe that all the issues that are going on around the world right now in terms of the geopolitics, the trade wars with real bombs, have played an impact on people traveling. Sometimes Canadians would have to come through the United States. They are hesitant to go there. Same thing with Europeans. But all in all, we're still performing at the same rate, I would say, of last year. So if memory serves me, it was 316,900 between January and June this year, and it was 316,500 last year. Just a marginal increase, which I also think that last year, if you look at 24 compared to 23, was an anomaly. It was a huge growth, and I would prefer a more sustainable growth path. I think things are settling down now, and hopefully this second half of the year we can sustain the same levels that we did last year, or do a little bit more. A lot of it has to do with airline capacity as well. Last year we had a little bit more at this time, and in the second half of the year we should be getting some good news with new capacity into Belize. Current flights that we have will be expanded, and we have one or two more airlines that we're talking to. I'd hope that we could announce something today or yesterday, but I've been told it's going to be next week. So hopefully that can be finalized, and we can announce that.
So when you say we had more airline capacity last year, the previous years compared to this year, what do we mean? That airlines are pulling out?
No, not airlines are pulling out. For example, you had 2 flights out of Miami daily. That went down to 1 because airlines tend to prefer yield rather than having the expenses of carrying 2 planes into a destination. So instead of the 2 planes, they would fill 1 and get it off the ticket prices because there is no direct competition out of Miami for American. And the same thing with Dallas. Talking to the airlines executive, they said that maybe they were a little bit ambitious last year, and they felt it out just coming out of like the last few years of COVID, and wanted to see what the destination had in terms of demand.
Does it also mean, just on that topic, could it also mean that they're not seeing the volume of travelers coming to Belize that they anticipated and we anticipated?
No. Sometimes they feel out things just to see where it goes. But like I said, capacity is going to increase in the second half of this year.
What will contribute to that? Talking about the second half now and the projections.
For example, one of the airlines is going to put a second flight out of LA. There's going to be additional capacity in certain areas. Dallas, I believe, is going to be increased in terms of capacity, and so they're just going to put more capacity, either a second flight or a bigger plane.
You spoke earlier about the geopolitics of tourism at this time and how it could potentially, or if it has potentially affected Belize's tourism. I want to spend a quick moment to talk about that, because it's a very real reality that's affecting not only our country, but the entire world. When we look at tariffs and real wars with real bombs, as you highlighted, has this affected our tourism in any way in particular? When we think of the United States and tourism that comes from the United States, I imagine, being one of the largest amounts. Is this something that we are concerned about?
Yeah, very concerned. You have to always be concerned when these things happen. But we've seen it all. We've seen 9/11, we've seen SARS, we've seen Ebola, we've seen hurricane. And just recently, we tend to forget that we had COVID just a few years ago. And so when the bottom really fell out, I believe people need just to chill a little bit. We'll see these things settle down. And I think going forward, we should see a decent second half of the year.
What efforts are we putting in, Minister, to ensure that we make Belize appealing not only to the United States, but to other regions?
Well, that begins with a diversification strategy, which we have. So we're looking at South America heavily. But airlift is important. So if you're coming from South America right now, you have to go through Panama, through Copa, but it's a once a week flight. Or for the most part, you have to go through one of the major hubs in the United States. We're talking to airlines in South America to try to build that back. We're trying to get back Avianca, which was huge for us back in the day. And then we just have to continue to go into different source markets. I still believe that we're going to get that elusive first flight out of Europe. And we have to continue to build right around us in Central America and in Mexico. In fact, I had asked for us to really change the strategy with Mexico over the last few years, and now we have more than doubled the amount of Mexicans coming into Belize. So I think that's a huge market, over 120 million people. In fact, you have Guatemala right next door that has about 18 million people, and so these are large markets right next to us that we can do certain things to improve the amount of visitors coming in from those destinations.
When we talk Mexico, I think usually the thought process that's involved is Belizeans going to Mexico and not necessarily Mexicans coming to Belize. And when I think of Tren Maya as well and the potential that that could bring to tourism, I also think of Belizeans going to Mexico as well. Is this something that we find as a challenge here when it comes to tourism? Well, Mexicans or people from Central America coming to Belize?
Well, we had an issue at the border first. The ease of flow for Mexicans coming into Belize wasn't easy. So we've made some changes. We've removed a lot of the fees that they had to pay to come in, especially with their cars and stuff like that. In fact, we had a discussion in cabinet on that on Tuesday, and we're going to free it up some more because we believe that is almost a captive audience right there next to us. And now we have to partner with the private sector to ensure that more people, from my research, Mexicans dive a lot as well, and this should be their ease to get here, right? Rather than going somewhere far around the world.
Help us to understand, why is it that while we're saying the numbers are basically the same year to date, this year, last year, stakeholders and investors are saying that they're struggling, that some businesses are projecting having to close down, while others are saying the money is just not there like it once was. What's happening there in your view?
No, that's an interesting point. I have not heard anybody say that they're closing down. If the vast majority of properties either change ownership or reopen during COVID, why is it that they're going to shut down when we're marginally down in May? 1 month, right? April was a robust April. January, more than last year, January. February, more than last year, February. March, marginally down because Easter fell in March the year before. And then April, we were up significantly. And so the softening came in May when the issues really started with the geopolitics and the wars, like I said, and the trade wars and the tariffs being put. So May, marginally down, about 6 or 7%. And June, we will be marginally down. So pretty much right on the same track as last year.
You will accept that there are stakeholders and investors that are saying, in essence, the money not running at the tourism industry right now in the way they projected it would.
Well, I've heard some people say so, but the numbers aren't showing that, to be honest. Even if you look at the hotel revenues for the first 6 months, we're up by about $1.5 million for the entire country. Now, we would want it to be a little bit more, but barring the circumstances, I think we're doing okay.
So could it be a matter of that we're now in the traditional slow season at this point in time, well, compared to before, after COVID, there was this boost and extended long season, if you would, or fast-paced season, and now we're going back to the traditional slow season. So people are having to adjust, or the industry is having to adjust to pre-COVID schedule.
Well, I wouldn't call it slow season, right? We prefer to call it green season.
Green season.
Yeah, when it rains, everything
gets green. That's where you put
eh?
pan meat?
Huh?
That's where you put pan chicken, green season?
Meat and the rice, I think.
Okay, cool. So you call it green season. Yeah, talk about that. Why you call it green season?
Because it's raining and everything is greener than in the dry season, right? Mm-hmm. So instead of having a negative connotation to it, we want to have something more positive, and there needs to be some adjustment into what we're doing in the industry, especially in that slower part of the year. But for example, I was having a conversation with a few executives from Carnival. If memory serves me right, these are the actual months. Carnival generates 50% of their overall revenues in July, August, and September. 3 months. So the tourism industry, you have to adjust to the traffic flows. With these issues currently, more and more Americans, which is our major source market, say that they're going to stay close to home. So travel within the United States, domestic travel. Mm-hmm. And so we have to find other areas whereby we can keep the numbers growing. Like I said, I still think last year was an anomaly. We're settling back down to where it should be in terms of a growth rate. Between 2023 and 2024, we added, I think, 100,000 visitors just in that 1 year, which is huge, right?
Oh.
With last year being an anomaly, as you mentioned, do you project, even though we're still just about halfway through the year, that we could potentially exceed the numbers that we saw last year?
There's an optimistic case and a pessimistic case and a middle ground case. Hopefully we can exceed what we did last year, but at the end of the year we're also hopeful that it's not going to drop significantly or compared to last year.
I want to quickly take the conversation over to cruise tourism. You spoke about Carnival and the investments that they were able to make and what they were able to see in 3 months. What are we seeing here in Belize as it relates to cruise tourism at this time? We still have a terminal that we're trying to see come to fruition.
Actually, in terms of just the raw numbers, we're up year to date, which is good for many people who work in that sector of our industry. We've had going back to the port, we've had extremely good conversations with major developers to be partners with us. And right now we're working on a master plan to be completed. And then we will put it out to bid to see who can be a good partner and a fit for us in terms of building both the cargo facility and the cruise terminal.
Mm-hmm. Where does Portico fit into this? My understanding is they're back in the conversation, at least at the initial stage, with a new proposal.
I don't know.
Aren't they back in the conversation?
I don't know.
Okay.
Honestly, I really don't know.
Yeah, reports are that, and we aired the story that they've created a new proposal, that they've redesigned the facility. Haven't you heard any conversations about that?
And I'm being honest, I haven't seen it, I haven't heard it.
Okay. So when can we expect? I think the Prime Minister had said that with the developments at the port of Belize Limited, that we're looking to the end of 2026 to bring this project to life. What are we looking at?
Hopefully, if we go through all the processes, I'm hopeful that we can get it before the end of 2026 to really kick off the project with the experts saying that somewhere between 2028 and 2029 we can have some facility back there being opened.
What's the, switching the conversation a bit from cruise, for those who may not be familiar, what's the role that the Belize Tourism Board plays in developing our tourism product, and what does that symbiotic relationship look like between the BTB and the Ministry of Tourism at large?
Well, the Ministry of Tourism is a
umbrella,
and just like Diaspora, just like Border Management, just like BTB, just like the other organizations, BTB falls within that. The CEO sits by law on the board of BTB. The same thing with BHA, the Belize Hotel Association, BTIA. The chairman of the BTB currently is the president of UB, and Dr. Vincent Palacio. We have good, experienced people on the board driving the discussion and driving the policies forward. But the core function of BTB is to market and to focus on the development of the product itself. You cannot have a broken product and keep marketing. It won't succeed in the long run. So there are so many issues that we need to fix and that were left behind during the previous administration in terms of the industry's development, that we have had to work on a lot of the fundamentals to ensure that the industry has longevity. For example, Secret Beach, right? We all know Secret Beach. One of the most Googled areas in Belize. One of the most Googled areas in the region in terms of beaches without sargassum, which is kicking our butts right now. But yet, Secret Beach is so important to San Pedro that Secret Beach has no light, no water, no sewer system, no controls. It's just free for all happening out there. And so, to me, if we don't curb all of these activities happening out there, it will become an at-risk destination within the country. And so we have to rectify that as quickly as possible. I've spoken to my colleague, Honorable Julius Espat, in terms of trying to create some zoning out there and put in place some controls for it. But the primary function, marketing, product development, training has become a huge thing for us, because for far too often we say we're nice people, but that doesn't translate into high-level service on the ground all the time, right? And so we see that there is a huge need for more training so that our people can provide the level of service that people expect now, traveling all over the world.
With these tourism numbers remaining steady, is it fair to say that the operations of the Belize Tourism Board remains financially sustainable at this point?
Yes, it is. We have a healthy cash flow, and we continue to do what is necessary with support from the private sector. I can't stress it enough that the partnership between our administration and the private sector has been strong and continues to be that way. As you all know, just this week we had a series of meetings down south with regards to regional integration and regional travel for Mundo Maya and Kata and all of these things, Fedicator. And so we want that kind of partnership to continue. We want to have mutual respect for the private sector, and the private sector having respect for us as policymakers in this country. But the tourism industry has survived a lot of major instances within the world. Like I listed a few of them earlier. In fact, we've survived several category 4 and 5 hurricanes, no?
Yeah.
And so we've bounced back, and we will always bounce back. All we need to do is pivot and ensure that we change the way we think going forward, learn from the lessons, and do better as we move forward.
Where BTB is concerned, the union and the opposition has taken you to task over what they say is a lack of transparency about the bond that BTB floated around $50 million. How do you respond?
Well, at times when a camera and a mic are put in someone's face, they have to grandstand. They have to come with some level of energy in that business. Like I've said before, I grew up in a household that is a union household, and so I understand that. But there has to be mutual respect. You can't say that there's mutual respect, and when you get out there, you say all sorts of things about the Prime Minister, you say all sorts of things about government ministers. There has to be some level of respect. And I want to say this, like I said, the private sector, both major private sector organizations are on the board of directors for the BTB. There is an audited financial done every single year, and we put those reports forward to the government, and so that will not stop. I have asked for the reports to be put together for the bond, and in short time I will present those to the nation. What I can tell you is that I have an arsenal to let go with on the previous administration, with them getting $90 million over their term with nothing to show for it. And I could tell you each of the projects that we're working on right now and have completed, none of them come close to the cost of what the previous administration did out of $90 million. I heard the leader of the opposition talking about mortgaging tourism's future. $90 million back then compared to $54 million now, paled in comparison.
I have 2 more questions before we invite your Minister of State on set, because we do have him as well. I know he's the young and fresh face in the ministry, and people are excited about what he's doing. But sticking on BTB, one harder question and one lighter one, but sticking on the topic of BTB, how is the Ministry of Tourism working alongside BTB to navigate the recent court losses in the cases involving Karen Bevans, Mr. Michael, and Norman Young? At least 3 that I can remember. There's just $1 point something million that the court is asking the Belize Tourism Board to pay out.
That is totally inaccurate.
In total, 700,000 for Miss Bevans. Well, you're telling me it's inaccurate. Start bringing the figures. 200,000 for Michael's. Okay.
Right, just listen. Those monies have already been paid, you know. These are not new things. What we did was to appeal the first judgment at the appeals court, and we lost. Now, we're seriously contemplating about going to the CCJ because we feel that there are grounds on whereby certain things went wrong. In fact, if you read the judgment, the judgment said that there was no board oversight in signing the contracts. Mm-hmm. Now, that's a fundamental principle in this, you know. Mm-hmm. You're saying that there are issues elsewhere regarding this, that the board did not see the contract, the board did not approve the contract, and the chairperson or the head of that institution signed off on contracts. That's the same thing that happened in the BTB. In fact, there were other things that have happened in the past administration that we were left with in the bag. Now, if you look at those contracts, right, they're unbreakable on one side. So it's not any like that we're taking advantage of those individuals. The contracts were one-sided. one-sided in their favor, just in the event that something like this would happen.
And we know that to be common practice.
Common
There's
practice.
a change of administration.
We will extend your contract beyond next election just in case.
But if you are the executive management of an organization under a new administration, and a simple thing like this, when I used to walk into the tourist board, morning, and nobody answers, that's an issue for me, because then there's no mutual respect. If we have a press briefing and none of the executive managers show up, that's an issue for me. And those are the things that were happening. Nothing was happening in terms of our directives at that time. So we had to make a decision, because I am not here for 30 years, 40 years in politics. I want to come in and I want to work my butt off, working smart and hard to ensure that we do the things necessary for us to improve the quality of living in this country. And tourism has a great responsibility for that. It's almost 50% of our economy. It employs over 25,000 people. And so we have to move forward. We have to get it right as more often than not. And we have to continue to grow this industry for everybody to benefit.
I can't continue on that topic just for the sake of time, but there's a question a viewer posed that I really want to ask, just to wrap up this conversation on tourism. I think it's important that we address adapting to the shocks of climate change, and what adaptive mechanisms the tourism industry is considering, or the ministry is considering, to deal with the shocks of climate change events. We talked about hurricanes, but there's also the issue of sargassum that's plaguing San Pedro at this point in time. Erosion in Placencia. I mean, we could go on and on and on and on. What are the experts doing?
You're saying indirectly that the Ministry of Tourism and the BTB should be leading those things, right?
Should be leading. I think that's their mandate, no?
Right. See, you agreed with me. That it's more than just marketing and PR and those things. There are a lot more to the industry than just marketing it. And so, yes, it's a crucial, and it's a very valid question by that individual. And if you look at our Sustainable Tourism Master Plan, the environment, meaning the natural environment, and our people are at the core of it. So we have a sargassum task force now made up of all the entities that could come together and provide. In fact, I took a paper, you talk about beach erosion and stuff like that. I took a paper to cabinet maybe about a month ago to start what is called a Clean Belize initiative. Now, what we have to do is structure it in the right way, and so that's what the discussions are that we're having right now. How do we deal with these issues? I've also brought the issue of fly fishing flats being decimated. I've also spoke about the amount of litter that we have all over the place, because when you have exit surveys, those are the things that our guests are saying on the surveys. No, this is not an issue. Derelict vehicles all over, stray dog, all of these things. Even stray dog, we have to try to see how we deal with. When those should be other entities coming on board.
Perhaps at a community level.
Right. But we have to take the lead on all of those things. If the rivers are congested before Ruta Maya, we have to go in there, clean up the river with logs and debris all over the place. If it's silted, then we have to try and get some dredging happening. So all of those things come into play. But the Clean Belize initiative, I think, is going to be a great program for us moving forward. It's to focus on beaches, to focus on the major highways, and to focus on just keeping Belize clean and healthy. The riverways as well, because a lot of those people just throw stuff in our waterways. And so we take that at our core. In fact, from we got in, we put in place a sustainability desk for the industry.
Minister, for the sake of
Yeah.
time, we're going to take a quick break. I want to thank you so much for responding to our questions. And when we come back, we're going to be joined by Minister of State, Devin Daly. And the next conversation, we're going to pivot to what's taking place in youth and sports. We'll be right back.
Leomar Langzert, and I'm a teacher and I bank with Belize Bank Independence Branch. What I enjoy is the safety features that the app offers. I have a sense of not having to worry or be concerned about somebody finding my password and username to sign in the application because of the use of the one-time password. And another feature that I love, that I use the most, is how the app synchronizes with my fingerprint on my device. I enjoy the rapid and easy, seamless process to apply for loans through the Belize Bank, and I don't have to be having too much back and forth to visit or take time to visit the bank. They also start to offer the online applications through the app for loan applications, which I believe is very neat. I would definitely recommend Belize Bank to other teachers because one of all the features and advantages that the app offer with these online that Belize Bank offered is basically everything that you can do in the palm of your hand. So I would definitely recommend the bank to other teachers.
We at Fulltech Systems understand that technology isn't just a tool, it's a game changer. At home, smart devices and AI are revolutionizing daily life. In education, tech is making learning more interactive and accessible for students and educators alike. For businesses and government, it's driving innovation, streamlining operations, and unlocking growth, leveraging tech for better services, infrastructure, and security. At Fulltech Systems, we help you thrive with cutting-edge solutions, partnering with leaders like Dell, HP, Microsoft, APC, Fortinet, Cisco, and Tomy. We deliver the right products for your needs, whether it's boosting efficiency, improving customer engagement, or scaling operations. Connect with us and let's drive innovation together. Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you come for the price, but stay for the service.
Coming up, get ready because it's crop over time. A friendship contribution to children with cancer, making a difference for those with special needs. African culture expressed through fashion, and another reward for a job well done. It's all next on this station.
Welcome back to Open Your Eyes. We are continuing our conversation on topics related to tourism, diaspora relations, and we're now adding in sports into the dialogue. We are still joined by the Minister of Tourism, Anthony Mahler, but also joining us is the Minister of State, Devin Daly, here to discuss matters related to youth and sports. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. Well, Devin, thank you for joining us on the couch.
Good morning.
Let's take the conversation over to sports. Last time we had you here, Devin, we were speaking extensively on a shift taking place in the country where youth and sports is concerned. We spoke in detail about some revelations coming out of the Department of Youth Services as well as the Sports Council. Let's talk about what the updates have been from that side since then.
Not forget, the man get the minister in a trouble and leave it, right? When they say we have fire everybody. I just sit there. You never say it like that, right? But that's the interpretation that people got. We have fire everybody. So to Sab's question.
And I will stand correct. It wasn't him who said it.
Okay.
It
So
was
it was
me.
you who said it.
So I was saying, and I don't mean to interrupt, but I want that to be corrected.
Okay.
It was, if you're going through a presentation, and he can attest to this, and the no nonsense at the talk or what are going in this program, nothing. Where they go in that program? 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 Nothing. And all you hear are nothing, nothing, nothing. And when we go check it, nothing.
But the money they spend.
Money they spend, leave it on money.
Yeah.
But to me, that organization is too important for us not to get it right.
We're speaking of Department of Youth Services, yes.
And sports.
Yes.
Right? Nothing really happening. And then you tell me you need more staff. So I said, from how you look, and this is the correct version, but yet people still are jump out there and say, who send out press release, the union, and send out, them have a conversation with me for try to figure out where I say that I want to just fire everybody. No, that is not the case. That makes no sense, especially in the public service like the youth department is. That has to go through a whole process. In fact, it's virtually impossible for you to terminate someone out of the public service. It's a little bit easier out of the National Sports Council because
if they're open vote?
No, it's a statutory board, right?
Okay.
So that's they have a board. They're like BTV then. They're not fully government service. And so when you hear these things and you say, well, maybe you need 120 staff for the do nothing, and maybe you need 75.
All right, so
control, right?
That was where we were a few months ago.
Yeah.
Since then, there's been kind of like a stillness. We haven't really heard much of what took place thereafter. The conversations, the panic from the public that there might be a mass firing taking place, but still with a promise that improvements needed to be made within the Department of Youth Services and the National Sports Council. What's the update from there?
Well, since then we've completely looked at both of the organizations' organogram, and we've made some changes. Our style, myself, the minister, and the CEO. We've done visits to all of the facilities countrywide for sports, and we're currently putting together a master plan for Belize City with some of the facilities that we want to uplift, and we've also done a comprehensive detail looked at some of the upliftments that need to be made to the facilities countrywide.
I want to take a quick look at youth, because I mean, I remember way back in the day, I used to work at the Department of Youth Services, so I recognize how unique that department is and the mandate that it serves. I remember we would speak in detail about the importance of uplifting our youth because of the percentage that they play in the entire country. At that time, it was 70% of the entire population was under the age of 30, 35 or thereabout. How do you go about placing the importance of developing young people when the budget is so slim? The staffing, as you mentioned, Minister Mahler, seems to be, well, one side is saying they need more people, but we're not seeing the numbers or the statistics or the data suggesting that what they're doing is enough. How do you go about fixing an issue like that for a large population of the country?
I think the first thing that we have to do is find out exactly what the youth are really asking for. There is not any real concrete data speaking to what programmatic approach we need.
I remember in 2020, I believe it was when the administration just came in, I believe it was the minister, well, the now Minister of Health, Minister Bernard. They did an entire countrywide, I believe it was like they spoke to several young people to try to gather information on what they wanted. Was that not put into
I believe the landscape has
black
changed.
And white?
I believe the landscape has changed a lot. We weren't in office during that time, so I haven't really been presented that information as yet. However, one of the things that we've came in and looked at is there's been a lot of emphasis on at-risk youth. So what about the youths that are actually model citizens? What about the youth that are actually good in sports and school and trying to be better? What opportunities are there for them? Those are the youth, that is a population that we have to find the support.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
I 100%. 100%. That was one of the conversations that I even though I'm not working within the Ministry of Youth at this point anymore, I still have conversations regarding the development of young people. I will say there is an importance for us to highlight model young people,
Exactly.
but also still ensuring that we do what we can for young people who are at risk.
Agreed.
So there needs to be a balance there. Do you believe that that is taking place within the Department of Youth Services?
I believe that that is the style we're trying to implement and bring. There has been some support offered to at-risk, but there's a lot of buzzwords in our culture in these times, and one of the things that you could easily find money and support for is at risk, at risk, at risk. And so, you know, we have to find that niche for the young people that actually are showing that they want to do better already, not the ones that necessarily need that nudge. While that is very important, that is where we come from. Those are the people that we represent. So we know intimately and intricately how that transformation can benefit not only them but their families, right?
So, Minister, one of the problems, just before you continue, one of the problems we have though with a ministry or a department like the Department of Youth is that we have this practice in government where, open voter, make we put you there for get one lead job, the Department of Youth. Or you support me or you support one of my colleagues, make I send you the youth department for get a lead job or make a lead money. When another minister come to the Minister of Youth and say, why two of my people they need a job. Alright, make we put them in the youth and sport.
They call it the dumping ground.
So,
right.
Alright,
Yeah.
it's the dumping ground for people that I'm sure are capable, perhaps not of working in the youth, but in another area, but it's a dumping ground where people go to do absolutely nothing and benefit from taxpayers' money.
Well, I don't know if you can just target the youth department or National Sports Council with that.
I'm starting there.
Right? But there are some cases of it, yes, I agree, 100%. And that's what we want to change. So I was going to say earlier that since we started as myself as the minister and Minister Delia as the Minister of State, we've hired a consultant to look at all the departments, to look at the structure, where we have an attorney looking at certain things in terms of what the youth department is doing, what National Sports Council is doing, how we can strengthen both institutions. Like I said, those institutions and the programs that they should be putting out would have a tremendous impact on, like you said, 70% of the population. Youth is considered between 14 and 29, and that's about 50% of the population. When you go under 14, you're talking about 70% of the population is under the age of 29 or 30, thereabouts. And so we have to get it right. Now, these things take time in the system that we have here in this country. A lot of things take a long time before you can get them right, before you can really restructure, before you can change anything. So hopefully Minister Daly and I can get it done within the next few months in terms of the entire restructuring of both organizations. But it needs to be done.
What do you see, ministers, as the programs that are needed within this country to truly uplift our young people here, the model as well as the at-risk?
The model has to be one, like the minister said, that engages young people. We have to have an open, honest dialogue. How can we provide the necessary support in whatever area? For example, just like the creative arts, that's not a part of our culture really, in terms of getting the orange economy really growing and vibrant, like you see in other destinations in the Caribbean and right around us. So that's an area. The minister also spoke about those people, those young people who have the potential to do great things for themselves, their families, and this country, who do not have the necessary support. We far too often focus on the at-risk youth rather than the people who truly have potential and creating those safety nets for them. In terms of sports, the structure just doesn't work. You can't, and can tell you better than this because he played at a much higher level than I did in basketball. But you can't have a national competition for high school that only happens on a weekend, except for Belize City and Belmopan. Young people have to be playing a lot of games, and we have to have the proper support systems in place for them to raise the level. A lot of these competitions should be executed and organized by the federations and the association, and the National Sports Council come in and provide a level of support for them. So these are the things that we want to bring. For example, a lot of it has to do with the schools. You don't really get any skills in primary school and high school if you are an athlete.
Yeah.
You have to get that outside. Now, one of the things that I've been talking about, Minister Daly has been talking about, is how can we get quality PE teachers in the schools. Peace Corps is providing some for us, and we also think that if you look at the BDF, they retire somewhere around, I think, 43 to 45, somewhere around there. Most of them are still in shape. They have discipline. If we can say, all right, Football Federation of Belize, can you train this person up to a high-level coach? We're going to go through a screening process. We put them in the schools rather than many of them going to be security guards outside a Chinaman shop or a bar or something. To me, it is more dignified that I can go into a school and impart knowledge on a young person who can then become a Devin Daly.
Yeah. So to Devin Daly's story, Minister Daly's story, you rose through the ranks with the assistance of community programs, community sporting programs. Remember the Bulldogs. We're talking about Mr. Roscoe. We're talking about then playing at other levels. So you understand the importance of having these establishing these community initiatives where sports is concerned. Where are we right now with, if not establishing, developing these community initiatives across the country? Something that, in my view, has been absent.
I think in order for us to have that conversation, we must look at the conversation of having the adequate facilities ready. I think the days are gone whereby we're having these kids running up and down solely on cement courts outside. It rains more than 6 months of the year in Belize, so if you only have access to an outside basketball court, which we all grew up on, we have the scrapes for sure, we have the peel up elbow for sure, but if we only have that, then you're only looking at 4 to 5 months of actually developing your skills and harnessing your talents. So right now, before we look at bringing those programs, in parallel, we're looking at the facility development that is desperately needed.
Okay,
how much does something like this cost, though, to go about developing these facilities
across the country?
We've spoken about this at large, even before administrations before us, that the facilities need to be improved, that sports needs a bigger budget. How much is it costing to make this investment?
Well, I don't have a figure. However, I'd just go ahead and give this exuberant number. However, I think that we've never, in Belize, First Sports, and I could speak of what I know, facilities, we've never looked at proper maintenance. Yeah. And we also have to look at, we've came up with 4 pillars: education, for youth and sports, education, civic pride, health and wellness, and I believe Minister, economics. However, the pride aspect is something very serious we need to look at. Going into these facilities and honoring it as if it's though it's your own house, and maybe that is where the fall short is. So we're looking at that approach to see, what is the family structure like.
But we have a good example of what we can accomplish with a relatively small amount of money. Berger Field.
Yeah.
That was just a tripartite agreement between myself, the Football Federation of Belize, and the National Sports Council at 4, because Belize City Council and the mayor helped us with paving the road and other stuff, other heavy works that needed to be out there. So that's a group effort. and now you go there any day, and to a fault that it's become overused so quickly, because what you have to create is an environment where people feel that they're in a next place from what they're used to, especially the people who are deprived, the people who come from a lower economic standing. When you go there, you want to feel safe, you want to have a positive experience, and so we are looking at how we can establish a few of those across the country. We want to look at the Mexico Center, we want to look at Rogers Stadium, we want to look at Isidoro Beaton, People Stadium in Orange Walk, and the facilities all across the country. So what we're doing is restructuring the finances, dealing with some of the internal inefficiencies that we had, and then working on raising some more capital, whereby it's not going to be close to enough, but we can start just a leaf and paint, cut the place properly, have the necessary equipment to get the job done on a daily basis, and hold people accountable for the work that they should be doing. For example, Minister Daly and I asked for pictures and videos of all the facilities to be sent. If you are a caretaker and if you are maintenance, you can't go into a public bathroom facility, which should be your job to have it clean, take a picture of garbage way high, and then send it in. Something wrong with you? In a private sector, what may happen?
Someone's going to get fired. So it's your view then that the caretakers, the persons that are in place and supposed to fulfill their roles, they're not doing their jobs?
Some. And so we're going through the transition process. And like I said, it takes a little time. We're not here just to fire people and take bread out of their mouth, but we want you to be accountable. We want you to work, and we will improve the quality of the work environment as well, no?
But what have we done over the last 3 to 4 months to address that inflated workforce, if you would, both in the youth department and this National Sports Council? Because we've accepted there's an inflated workforce. Too much people, they try swing one axe, right, for chop down one small tree, or a big tree in this case, because these are big issues. But do we continue to allow them, or have we gotten rid of some of this inflated stuff?
Like I said, the National Sports Council is easier to get things done because it's not fully the public service, right? So we've shed some of the excess that we have at the National Sports Council, and we're going through this entire exercise of assessing each department, the skill sets that are in there, and how do we make the youth department more efficient and more impactful on the country and the people it should serve.
Speaking about accountability and holding people accountable for the job they're supposed to be doing, we understand that an audit was commissioned for the Department of Youth, as well as the National Sports Council, or the Ministry of Sport in this case. When will that audit be made public? And what has it revealed so far?
I think that audit was done by the audit department. No? So
can you request that it be made public?
I can see what that process is, yes.
What has it revealed?
Like I said in previous interviews, that there were some inefficiencies. There were some lack of accountability in terms of how a small amount of monies were being used and spent, but we have already rectified some of those situations, and more so for the National Sports Council compared to the youth department. Everything goes through general revenue for the youth department. They send a subvention, and based on the line items in the budget, they execute. So more of the fundamentals are being done for the National Sports Council compared to the bureaucratic public service system for the youth department. So you would see a vast improvement for sports compared to the youth. Like I said, we want all hands on deck for us to be able to be more impactful.
No, you would support that audit going public, right?
100%.
Great. So I have to ask about the board at the National Sports Council. Again, I think this is the third or fourth time I'm asking you for names, Minister. It's been 4 months. When will we find out who's now on that board?
It's not any secret, as I understand it, because of the legislation and how it's gazetted and all of that. You have to have a director. We're going through director of sports. We're going through that process of identifying a new director so that we can have one list going. But like I said, Pete Lizaraga is on the board, Warren Koye, people from cycling, people from volleyball, people from all eras and walks. So I think we have a very, very, very solid board, and that they will lead the organization in the right direction.
That still doesn't tell us fully a list of names.
I can share it with you this afternoon.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Just for your consumption.
All right. Well, gentlemen, we are winding down on time simply because we are running out of time. I do want to ask you, Minister Mahler, if there are any updates as it relates to diaspora relations and what is being done with that portfolio.
Well, we always want to focus on the diaspora. I think right now, if we look at the remittances for this country, it's closer to $300 million a year, which is very impactful on our economy. But with the issues happening in the United States, where the bulk of our diaspora is, a lot of people said that, yeah, we don't want no major engagement in any area. I see that they're having the Diaspora Investment Summit in Miami soon. So I wish them well. But we continue to manage the DRIP program. We continue to have dialogue. We continue to reach out to people in the diaspora to send back stuff for Belize. We have some school supplies that they want to send for the summer, medical supplies, those type of things. But that it is important that we continue to have a mutually respectful dialogue between Belize and the diaspora. Like I said, $300 million through the official system is a lot of money.
Yes.
And we need their support, especially in when the economy slows down, and especially during COVID, when a lot of people weren't working or unemployment was at a high level. We saw that the diaspora came in big for us, and so we'll continue to do our part. Hopefully, all the issues with ICE and all of that can settle down. Big Brother up north gets its house in order, and then we can deal with the rest after that.
Yeah, gentlemen,
right.
I wish we had more time.
We do not, though.
There's a great deal more questions to ask, but we only have a limited amount of time to talk about these things in the morning, right? So perhaps we'll go call a press conference and people with some more questions too. No, but we appreciate these conversations here and your appearance for sure.
And we're here to educate the population, because in this day and age, I went to see a very prominent.
Your final thoughts, right?
I went to see a prominent a former president speak the other day in the United States, and he says that even though the digital world will help us be connected, he also said that there is some serious level of concern with too much democracy and people saying too many things who don't have the expertise, who don't have the knowledge. So that's why I think the media is very important, and the media in Belize should not try to be an opposition, but to search for facts. Don't editorialize. Focus on educating our people with the right information. I know what's wrong with TikTok and none of anything, because I have to lean over to somebody and say, this thing not real or not real? Sometimes you say LeBron James, the cost of a player, and you know that they're not real. But there's just too much misinformation being used because there's so much freedom on these platforms. I don't know it's a censorship or anything like that, but there has to be some accountability with the information being spewed out there.
Excellent. Well,
right.
Minister Mahler, Minister Daly, we want to thank you both so much for coming on set, talking about tourism, a bit of what's happening in youth, as well as touching briefly on the diaspora. We do hope to have you all back sometime soon and we could expand this conversation, but thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, speaking of youth, still on that topic, when we come back, we will be joined by representatives of Niche introducing their Summer Arts Immersive 2025 program.